8 years ago, my husband David became very sick with ALS. Among other problems, he had trouble swallowing, which meant that sometimes saliva got on his clothes. But when a home health aide I'd found online suggested that we duct tape his mouth shut, I knew I'd entered an alternate universe. When David was diagnosed in 2010 with ALS, I was pretty naive about the world of home health care. We'd planned for him to spend whatever time he had left at home, and I knew we'd need help, but nobody tells you how to find it. The internet is teeming with agencies that sound caring and compassionate, but at roughly $30 an hour, they were way out of our reach. So, like many in our shoes who can't afford agency fees, we looked for someone who'd work privately. I went to Craigslist and bulletin boards. Some of the people we interviewed and even hired had little or no experience. One was so clumsy he broke David's glasses. Another sat in the kitchen reading a book called Hot Women of the Bible. One aide got mad and dropped David forcefully on the bed, yelling, "Good luck," and never came back. In fact, most aides stopped coming back sooner or later. Most disturbing of all was an aide who I later learned had been arrested for assault and battery and witness intimidation. This was very scary. Entrusting strangers with my husband's life felt so unnatural, so creepy. I was just going on faith that he would be safe. At some point, it occurred to me we couldn't possibly be the only ones having these kinds of problems with home care workers, not with 10,000 baby boomers turning 65 every day. I did some research, and the more I looked, the more horror stories I found.
She stole money.
What she did to me, this is a con artist.
My father was laying with his feet facing me, and I didn't know if he was alive or dead.
The demand for home care workers is so high, it's being called a crisis. But it's an industry with very little government oversight. While most home care workers are really reliable and trustworthy, in fact, we had two terrific ones, the fact is that it's really hard to navigate this perplexing and really infuriating industry on your own. It's an industry that's just ripe for exploitation and abuse.
When Sarah first started working for me, I felt like I could trust her.
Deborah Lesko is a 68-year-old baby boomer in New Bedford. She really liked her personal care attendant, Sarah Estrella, who even gave her a goopy Mother's Day card.
Well, see, it says, with love to someone who's been like Mom. Having your friendship and love has meant the world to me, and I can't thank you enough. When she gave me that lovely Mother's Day card, she was stealing me blind on my Discover card.
In 2016, Deborah noticed she wasn't getting her credit card bills. She called the card companies and discovered thousands of dollars in charges for things she never bought.
She charged on credit cards or opened up accounts at Target. Victoria's Secrets, well, maybe 40 years ago, but not now.
All told, Deborah estimates she lost more than $20,000 in unauthorized credit card charges and bank withdrawals. In the end, Deborah said she was too worn out to testify, and the charges against Estrella were dropped. In my reporting, I found 50 cases of Massachusetts home care workers who have faced criminal charges in recent years. Like Deborah's case, most of them involve financial exploitation of some type. But more subtle and potentially more dangerous are the cases that involve some sort of negligence.
So my dad, his name was Stanley Boguski, and he was a veteran of World War II.
This is Dr. Mark Boguski of Chestnut Hill. His elderly father, Stanley, lived alone in Ohio and was robbed by a home care worker. So Mark installed security cameras in his dad's house before hiring the next worker. One Monday morning, after not checking for the weekend, he saw something very disturbing.
When I looked at the camera, he was laying on his back in the kitchen, and I could tell that he was still alive because he was kind of moving his arm back and forth.
Here's what happened. It was a Saturday, and his father had fallen while waiting for the weekend aide to come to the house.
And that weekend person never showed up. Never showed up on Saturday, never showed up on Sunday.
his dad spent 48 hours alone on the floor. Their next aide wasn't any better, and they paid too high a price for her lack of medical training. Mark's father had an ulcer on his foot, which the aide, who was responsible for his day-to-day care, wasn't looking after properly. Mark is a physician, and he noticed on a visit that the foot was getting worse. He took his father to the VA hospital. The news was not good.
The infection had spread, and they said, we can tell you that the antibiotics aren't going to control the infection. So he was admitted to hospice at the Cleveland VA hospital, where he passed away about 7 months later. You feel so vulnerable when you're putting the life of a loved one in somebody else's hands. We thought we thought we had it covered. We thought we were doing the right thing.
As uncompassionate as this industry can be towards those it purports to care for, I came to see that there is another side to the story. I met Stanley Berman, another World War II vet who, like many others, had been ripped off by an aide he'd grown fond of.
I couldn't understand, after working for me for so many years, how could she steal money from me?
When I talked to him about his experience with the aide, Jacqueline Coeri, seen here, I got some insight into the people on the other side of the equation, the caretakers.
She admitted it and said she needed the money for her mother who was sick in Uganda.
My reporting took a turn here. I learned that many of the home care workers who are immigrants have their own painful stories to tell, and they're often stories of survival. And that's how I met an aide from Ghana,
just put us here,
whose story was more representative of home care workers. Her name is Abba. She cares deeply for each of her clients.
I wake up before he does.
Abba's shift starts early.
He takes a shower with my help. I sit up and I wash him. Okay, young man. Yeah. He takes his breakfast and then take his medication. You want it painted? Jeez.
Her shift lasts all day. It doesn't end after 8 hours.
I'm here 24/7.
In fact, her shift doesn't really end at all. For the 5-day rotation, 120 straight hours, she lives in her client's house, sleeping in the next room. She must be physically near him at all times, always vigilant and patient.
I have to ensure his safety, so he doesn't trip, he doesn't fall, he eats well. Much better? Because God forbid, if anything happens to my client and he goes to the hospital for 5 days, I may be out of job for 5 days.
For home health aides like Abba, there is no job security. If a client is hospitalized or dies, she goes without pay.
It's physically exhausting. Tired mentally, tired physically.
An industry ostensibly about compassion shows precious little for its own workers. The base pay for home care workers can be around $12 an hour, though Abba does somewhat better because her agency is more generous and she works overnight shifts. Still,
It really doesn't feel like enough. You pay your rent, you pay your car note, and then the cycle begins. So it's paycheck to paycheck. The little you have, you send back home.
Abba isn't only working for herself. She's working for her family back in Ghana.
I'm here to make life much more better for them.
I had the chance to visit Abba's family in Accra. I met her husband, William, and their son, Yao, and daughter, Ya. They showed me some of the things she's been able to provide for them and also for the extended family. Everything from household items, toothpaste, and child car seats to a small freezer and an old car. Even though her husband is a well-known journalist in Ghana, she's the family's primary breadwinner from 8,000 miles away.
People are relying on me to eat, go to school, take care of their medical bills. You are pressured to always be on the job.
She only gets back to Ghana to see her family a couple of times a year.
Everyone loves to see their children, to see them crawl, to be there when they first take their first walk. It's hard being away from family. It's very, very hard.
Abba's experience of low wages, exhaustion, and long periods of separation from her family are fairly typical for home health aides born overseas, which is a significant percentage of them. Around the time I lost David, I was feeling like a victim of this industry. But I came to see that there are victims on both sides. Because of lax regulation and inaction by lawmakers, it pits one group of desperate people against another group of just as desperate people.